Good Friday morning, everybody. This is your dutiful, faithful, and servant, Senator Vickie Sawyer, as I call myself. But I have a friend, also your county commissioner, I could say that is dutiful and servitude, servant's heart, Commissioner Gene Haupt.
Good morning.
I was considering calling you what I usually call you, but then I realized that's not appropriate for radio.
That's true. Well, see, when I first heard that you needed somebody, I heard you were looking for a celebrity for today to go on with you.
I did.
And I felt really honored that you called me, but then I found out I was the 15th call.
No, you were not.
So,
no, you were my first call. We set it up a while ago. I'm grateful to have you. So, can I tell the story how we first met?
Yeah.
You don't mind?
No.
All right. Okay. So, this is how I, Senator Vickie Sawyer, at that time, mom, public school advocate, walking into Fat Boy's restaurant. So for those of you who the restaurant's no longer there anymore, but it's on Highway 150, exit 36 in Mooresville, and it was a place where the Republican men had their meeting. Mm-hmm. And so me not knowing what I was getting ready to step into, I came in and I was advocating as a speaker. I was thankful that they allowed me to speak, but I was advocating for a school bond, which was not really popular in that crowd. I was talking, and I think if they had tomatoes, they would have thrown them at me at that moment. And I was like the least popular gal in the room. But so here I am, I'm sitting there and I'm talking, I'm an excited mom. Remember, I started this life in service as a PTO mom and a president. And so I was super excited about building schools. We knew we needed them. This was a bond referendum to invest in education. And I just knew if I could say the right things, that I could convince these guys to go my way. And that was absolutely wrong. I was wrong. So from the back of the room, which you usually stand, Gene Haupt, you usually stand in the back of the room at any of our meetings, I see this formidable, I mean, you're not small. You're a tall guy. How tall are you?
6'5". 6'5".
You're 6'5". So I see these broad shoulders, really tall guy. And at that point, you were running for county commissioner, right? And you had not been elected yet. There was one of the times you had, okay. And you came out of woodwork and I
was appointed to Commissioner David Boone's seat, but I was also running. I had just finished running and was running for that year also,
Yeah, that's right. So what political courage you had, because you just kind of stood up, and although you didn't defend the school bond at that time, you did say, guys, she's just trying to be here to talk about it, to answer questions about it. Let's not put the tomatoes back on your plate and don't throw them at her. And I was like, I needed a friend, and you were a friend in that moment.
Well,
and that's how we
met.
Advocate
for, a needed revenue stream. And I think over the years we've all learned as we've gotten more seasoned is, when you go to the taxpayers in Iredell County specifically, is we've always prided ourselves in never going to the taxpayer unless it's the last resort.
Right.
And unless it's needed.
Right.
And so what we try to do then and now is explain how that bond impacts you economically, even if you don't have kids or grandkids.
Right.
And you were advocating and our Schools First and other people have done that over the years. And a lot of citizens, I've heard after, people don't want to pay more taxes.
Sure.
We get it.
Who
We
does?
don't either.
Yeah.
But I think when you explain to them how it benefits them, all the different things when you have economic growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the schools trained workforce is one of our biggest economic drivers with great schools. Mm-hmm. And so I think once we got to a happy median, people calmed down, but you were there advocating for more money.
It was not popular.
And they were like, no.
Yeah, that was my welcome to the Iredell County Republican Party world. But since then, we have been friends. Yep. And gosh, when was that? Was that 2014? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that has been a long time. And then because you stood up for me and helped me through that situation, we remained friends from that time. I actually have signs on my Twitter where I was putting out Gene Haupt signs. Right. If you've ever been a part of a Gene Haupt campaign, there are tons of signs involved. You're not afraid to put up a sign.
That's your logo, I guess you'd say.
People
recognize your sign.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to your son Ethan, who is probably one of your main sign getter-outers. And every 2 years, just like me, I think he and I look at each other, pass each other, we're doing signs, and like, oh, we're at it again.
This is a big county.
It is a huge
And
county.
when you run at large countywide,
Yeah.
you realize how long and wide this county is.
It is so big. And it also looks like Bart Simpson's head turned backwards.
Yes.
It does. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, Iredell County folks. It does. It is a very long, big county. And the county's really unique, too. I mean, Gene, you have a law enforcement background. You also have a small business background. You continue to buy and sell cars. So you got like a little dealer thing for classic car dealer stuff going on. So you get the whole thing from stem to stern, from public service to small business to being a parent. And also, you know, your children are wonderful. They're adopted.
We're
and
blessed.
so you've gone through all facets of government, which really makes you a great county commissioner. But let's go back to that school thing. So this is the one thing I like about you. Whether you love or hate Gene Halp, he is going to speak his mind, and he's going to ask a question.
You'll know where I'm at.
You know where I'm at. And the schools definitely know where you're at, because they are coming back and asking for a new high school. Right. And I know this is a point of contention, but this is what you want local government to do. You want them to have disagreements so you get the best dollar spent. So let's talk about this school. Let's talk about high schools. Tell me what's going on from your perspective. You know, is there going to be a high school? First of all, let's go back to the beginning. We know that we passed a bond in 2020.
Right.
That bond has a new high school for Iredell County schools, not Mooresville graded, because there's two different school districts, right?
Mooresville graded is just finishing up their middle school.
Okay, very good. So they're finishing up their middle school, but Iredell County has a new high school to go in off of what? Oswald, Amity.
Weathers Creek
area.
It's off Oswald, Amity area.
Okay, so let's just say that's Troutman area.
Right.
Let's just kind of say it that way.
Right.
So they were excited to do it, and then the next thing you know, and they got the money and they got the funding, and next thing you know,
COVID.
It wasn't enough.
Well, you had a lot of Dr. Miller, who's retired now from the school system. You know, he and Rob Jackson did a great job with building schools, and back when Brady Johnson was there and others.
Yeah, the superintendent.
And you have a new regime now that's doing a good job. But you know, we passed the bond in 20 with the growth in the county. You know, the original $80 million was for 1,400 core, 1,200. Student capacity high school. Okay. And then when the bond passed, due to the growth, you know, if you go back 20 years to Lake Norman High School, the day we opened the high school, we were moving trailers in. That's right. Because of we were at capacity. Right. So we started talking about, you know, should we step up to 1,600 students? And we knew that would be more than 80, but we'd never thought it would be at that time. The numbers were, you know, less than 100. Yeah. And we wanted to have room to grow and all of those things. We didn't want to repeat Lake Norman because of the growth. Right. Because you remember when the numbers come in and you plan a bond, you know, your numbers are a couple years old by the time it passes. And then you've got, you know, basically 5 years to deal with that revenue. And it's going to take probably 3 years to build it. So, you know, COVID happened, perfect storm. Brady retires. Dr. James comes in. A lot of factors there. It would have been ideal if we could have tried to get bonds sold before they went up, before the economy started really doing bad. But we're moving on beyond that, and it's a needed high school. Yeah. And the voters said yes to it. Right. So our job now is work with the school system on, we gave them a $120 million budget of what we feel like we can do, and we came up with that number that's 50% more than what the voters approved. And we feel like that hopefully when the numbers come back, they can build the school for that. If not, the school board could consider. Our job is to pay for it, not design it, build it, and all that. So they may have to look at a scope reduction at some point. Hope not. Yeah. But if we do, we'll tackle that and move forward. So thank you for clarifying that. So, I mean, I was chuckling, and I know I saw you look up when I was chuckling, but, I mean, $80 million for a school. That's a lot of money, you know? And then you're like, oh my gosh, it's not just 80 million. Once you take that bite, you're like 120 million for a school building. Right. I mean, I'm not throwing off on anything. No. It's just the cost of construction and materials is just killing us. And what's what's driving a lot of that is your supply chain issues. Right. And I think in a lot of cases there are people taking advantage of that. Sure. And you know, when you've got a market for your builders and everyone else, I think, you know, they don't have to tighten their pencils and erasers
Yeah.
as tight.
Yeah.
So I think, it's starting to come back down.
Yeah.
And so we're hoping we can get some bids for that and get going on that high school and start moving forward. And
Yeah.
so I'm looking forward to it. I know we've got to do what's right for the citizens, and I know it's not going to do us any good to banter back and forth in public. All of our jobs are to do what's right for the citizens and keep their rates as low and be as efficient and as we can, and we're doing that.
Yeah. So when I first started into this school funding, I'm going to call it a rabbit hole because it is really complex how schools are funded and what goes on. And they say, well, we throw around this word bond. What does that really mean? In the government world, for me, what it means is a mortgage.
Right.
It's basically a mortgage. And when you ask the voters to approve the mortgage, it's kind of like your underwriter. You can get a better rate when you borrow the money if voters approve that, right? And so the mortgage company, the bond, in effect, is the county commissioner's way of securing that debt.
Right.
And then you have to have pledged a tax revenue for that bond. And so that's what bonds mean. Because, really, when I first started and I was doing the art schools first and we were advocating for the bond, I don't know that I really understood what that meant. And then sometimes when I'm talking to people today, when you're throwing that money, that bond word around, I don't know that there's an understanding of what that meant.
It's an investment. It's a mortgage. And two things go into that is you're getting approval from your citizens, and that's what the local government commission looks at, and they love that. And then your rating as a county, your financial situation. We're a top 2 state in the country for economic development and growth, and you're in Raleigh, and so we're a top 10, top 6 economic county in the state. And I tell people all the time, the biggest thing from my perspective that I ask people to do is I'm the messenger, and I say, before you judge our actions, at least ask us our options.
Oh, that's good.
Because we don't always have great options.
Right.
And we always fuss at y'all if y'all ever send us unfunded things.
Oh, we do. We love it.
I know, but,
that's what I'm gonna give you for Christmas is unfunded mandates.
I'm gonna get you some coal. I'm gonna send you some coal. But the citizens, the more I've talked to citizens since I've been a commissioner, I think it's appreciated that I always tell them the truth.
Yeah,
I show up to public events and I tell them what we're doing, why we're doing it, what our options are.
Yeah.
And I think it's appreciated. Sometimes people don't realize all of the things we do.
Right.
And I call what we have as local officials as a network from me to Washington. So people call me all the time if they have a need for something, and I know how to get in touch with you guys and or our federal partners and try to get help from veterans or anybody, that's struggling, and anybody that needs anything, they call who they know. Right. And our job is to help connect them with the right people.
No, and let's go back into that. So we talked about the definition, what a bond means, but let's talk about what a commissioner means and how it differs from different states or all over the state, because you are on a board that's very influential, and you've been elected into leadership on that board, and it's called the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners.
Right.
And believe me, and we were joking around about the unfunded mandates, but that commission looks at things that we're passing and says, Gene, call Vickie. They're getting ready to say, but you guys are in there and you are driving policy at the local level, but also at the state level and the federal level.
All of the 100 counties send the NCACC board of directors their priorities and goals. And then we keep hammering those. And then from the organization standpoint, I'm the District 12 director, so I represent 8 counties in the state. And so what that helps me do, I represent Cabarrus, Gaston, Iredell, Lincoln, Rowan, Stanley, and Union, and Mecklenburg. Okay. So I've got one of the most populated districts in the state. And so, looking at things from a regional standpoint, all but Mecklenburg County typically, are conservative counties. So, when we as commissioners at Iredell County kind of are responsible for certain areas of expertise. I used to be schools, now Vice Chairman Conley is our school guy. And so we all trade off. Commissioner Brown and I do emergency services and all those things. And so from my seat as an NCACC rep, I advocate on a regional level that helps our region, in turn helps Iredell County, whether that's traffic or funding or priorities with you guys. You guys on the state, for whether it's the House or Senate, understand that we're advocating from typically a bipartisan, because our board on the NCACC is 100 counties in the state represented by a mixture of elected officials.
Yeah.
So we get along really well. I tell people all the time, I wish all politics was that way, because we have some live debates sometimes, but we're really cordial.
Yeah.
And we advocate for what we think is right.
Yeah. Right.
And I think, my commissioner I used to serve with, Marvin Norman.
Yes, sir.
One of our best things we talked about all the time is if you always do what's right.
Yeah.
It may not be what's politically advantageous for me or him.
Right.
Because if people start making decisions to stay elected, Steve Johnson used to tell us, at some point you become unelectable.
Right.
If you do what's right.
Right.
Because if you can do what's right for the majority, you're going to upset some people. But I think at the end of the day, we're Christians, and so I think that we have to advocate for what we think is right, whether that's rezonings or other things that are tough.
Right. Absolutely.
Because you've got two sides to every issue.
That's right. And there's a difference between governing and having your own opinion.
Right.
I mean, so you have to get, we always say, you got to count to three.
You do.
You have to have 3 votes on the county commission to get things done. I have to have, in some cases, we have to override the governor's veto on certain things. We have to have 72 members in the House, and I have to have 30 people to say yes in the Senate. And that can be difficult.
Explain the advantages. A lot of people like your explanation of the importance of elections.
Yeah.
We have a Democratic governor.
Yes.
So explain what it takes to get something past him if he's vetoed.
Yeah. So, that's a good thing to talk about, because that's actually going to happen this week. So Governor Cooper's Mother's Day gift to mothers is to have a abortion rally, a pro-abortion rally. How weird is that? So he's going to go ceremoniously tomorrow and veto the abortion legislation. So what that means is it's not law, even though it passed the House, it passed the Senate, it goes to the governor's desk. The governor has 10 days. And on that 10th day, or on this day, he will veto it. In other words, that sends it back. Now, we have what's called a supermajority. So that means 30 of us senators, 72 of the House members have to vote together to override the veto, and that's an up or down vote. That's all it is. There's no amendments. There's no anything. It's that. So on Tuesday, I believe that we will be coming in and we will have a veto override vote. And that takes 30 people. Now, can you imagine your own family? Sometimes y'all can't decide on what you want for dinner.
Right.
Could you imagine having to wrangle that many people to override the veto, and especially on a topic as difficult as abortion? I mean, it is not an easy thing. And so let's just take that. Some people think that we have sold out and we haven't gone far enough, and it should have been a heartbeat bill or a bipartisan, all of that stuff. But you cannot get 30 members in the Senate to vote that way. So what do you do?
Not without some give and take.
Yeah, so there's a difference between what you think and what it takes to govern. And I think that's what you're talking about on the county level, is there could be what you believe, but sometimes you have to get those other votes. You have to govern, and you have to make sure that at the end of the day, you represent Republicans and Democrats, right?
I do.
So, and they all have to pay their taxes.
Right.
Some of them try not to, but for the most part, they all have to pay their taxes. And so, what is the best for Iredell County? And I do want to brag on our commissioners for Iredell County as someone who's at the state level. I was pulling up the property tax rates for all across North Carolina. If you look at Iredell County, we are some of the lowest taxed community in all of the state.
In the region,
and I know that we get frustrated about growth.
Right.
I get that.
Right.
We can't change it. It's coming. That's what's happening. You have to make sure you have smart growth. I've heard you say that a lot.
Growth,
We need balanced, smart growth. That's why it's important to get big businesses in here. When we saw that Doosan, expansion with Bobcat and everything, because they are a huge taxpayer and they actually require less services, but they pay more taxes. That's a big deal, right?
Sure.
And you guys have done a really good job at balancing that. So Iredell County is one of the lowest tax counties in the state, in the bottom 10% or top, however you want to talk about it.
Right.
But you know who are in the highest tax counties in the state? Those states whose communities are failing, like let's talk about not failing, but are really struggling and losing population, like Scotland County. They have $1 tax rate. And right now, what is Iredell County's? 52?
53.75.
53.75. So we are half the rate of what Scotland County pays. Or let's look at Washington, or that northeastern North Carolina that doesn't have a lot of industry. They pay basically double the tax rate that we do in Iredell County.
Right.
And talk about
And
how
that's what helps us with the balanced growth you hear about, is we always want the commercial industrial growth to outpace residential. Because the residential, I think right now you have to have a $400,000 home, I think is the last number, for us to even break even.
Really?
For the cost of services in the
So
county.
say that again. So a house that's
$400,000, we break even on from the taxes based on the services we provide with our city 26 county departments, whether that's EMS, sheriff, fire. We help do the 19 volunteer fire departments and rescue squads. So people don't understand that, we always, when we say smart growth and balanced growth, and so people understand is we don't have authority to control what happens within the municipalities either on their zoning decisions or their ETJs. So we've gotten really
ETJ is extraterritorial jurisdiction, and that's
that's typically
contingent.
within
We'll
a
talk
mile.
about that after the break.
Okay. That's typically within a mile of their city limits, or it could be a spot annex. But, people get frustrated because there are people out there that are erroneously, intentionally misleading people for political gain.
Oh, for sure.
That we control things we don't.
Right.
And you guys deal with traffic and we don't.
Right.
The municipalities deal with traffic in their jurisdiction. But, our biggest thing is, my goal, I tell people politics is like a GPS.
Okay.
All of our goals are the same destination.
Sure.
We just have to, when you enter an address, it gives you at least 3 options.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out a bipartisan way or a way that's best for the citizens to get to the goal. And unfortunately in politics, a lot of times if you don't agree on all 10 of 10 items, you don't do any of them.
Right.
It's crazy.
That's so, I do not understand that. So you've been married to your beautiful wife, Tanya, Dr. Haupt.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and I'm pretty sure that you guys don't agree 100%. You get called to the principal's office. And I've been married a long time. We don't always agree all the time, but it doesn't mean we're going to go run to the courthouse and get a divorce, right?
A successful marriage is a lot of mercy and grace and forgiveness.
But that's kind of what we do with politics, But again, there are those folks who say, "Well, you agreed with me 8 out of 10 times, but those other 2 times you didn't agree with me, we are going to have a
to prevent you from working on the 8."
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
And to me, the definition and the guiding principle of what conservative is slow, incremental change over time.
Right.
And you cannot do in politics, in these decisions, you cannot go back and forth like a pendulum, because what happens? You swing away. I mean, absolutely everything. So I do want to commend the Iredell County commissioners in the past, and you, sir, and currently for helping keeping our tax rate one of the lowest in the state.
We've had some wonderful predecessors for me, Steve Johnson, Ken Robinson, Sarah Tice,
Marvin.
Tommy Bowles, Marvin. We've had a lot of great people before us that told a lot of people no, through times that we had, less growth, when you do your reval. And we have to live in that budget cycle every 4 years. That's our budget cycle with the reval. And people, we can talk about that later. I know
we'll talk about reevaluation after the break.
We've got to, hopefully more people will understand, things you need to do, have to do.
Right.
And the reason why.
I know that if I were to be sick, if I call 911, I'm really excited that they actually show up.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
I mean, that's a big function of what you
people.
do.
Right.
And that costs money, right?
Does.
It just costs money. And so you guys have...
We've invested in a lot of great things for the county, and I'm proud of it. When you have a top 10 county almost in every category in the state of North Carolina, I'm telling you, you have a lot to be proud of.
Yep.
We have a very diverse county.
Right.
And so people can come to Iredell County and live in any type of surroundings they want.
They can go from farms to Ferraris. That's exactly right. Well, thank you so much for listening. You're on. Right. Commissioner Gene Haupt, and I am Senator Vickie Sawyer. Just grateful to be here, and we will talk some fun, controversial stuff after the break. Thank you so much for listening.
September 18th against the Saints.
WSIC weather, partly sunny today, high of 83. A chance for showers and thunderstorms tonight, the low 62. I'm Mike Jackson, WSIC News.
Hey everyone, this is Robert Carey from America's #1 travel radio show. Join Mary and me and Rudy each Saturday as we cover the ever-evolving world of travel, talk with newsmakers, share compelling experiences, and explore the world together during the fastest 2 hours in travel on RM World Travel.
Well, welcome back to We're Just Saying. I am Senator Vickie Sawyer along with Commissioner Gene Haupt. I keep on wanting to say hoop, but it's not.
Hoop.
You had this.
Just remember, there's no hope without hope.
That's what I was getting ready to say. I remember you have the greatest tagline in county politics. There's no hope without help. Yeah, right. There you go. And let's talk about hope. And when we're talking, because we've had a lot of folks have a lot of consternation about what's called a reevaluation, a property reevaluation. So let's go back to the beginning, because I always like to walk folks through what happens and why we're doing it. So why does the county do property reevaluations every 4 years?
Well, it's required by law every 8.
Every 8,
and so commissioners years ago started doing it every 4. For example, the biggest reason was like Mecklenburg County years ago did theirs every 8.
Right.
It was so significant of an impact at one time. There were people having to move, sell their homes. It was devastating. So doing it every 4 years, we call it a happy median.
Yeah.
You can try to gauge where you are. You can, we'll do the reval that's required. And then we live on that budget for 4 years.
Okay.
Typically, like anything else, your first couple of years, you've got a little extra money more than so, and then as cost of living and other things, cost of doing business goes up. By the time your revals due again, then you'll set your next cycle.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people called and asked, and there was some misinformation out there for political purposes. Oh, yeah.
No.
But,
you mean people would say nasty things that aren't true to make themselves look good?
We could have potentially delayed for about a year the reval, but you're gambling, because the state had already notified us that we were out of cycle, that we had some issues that we needed to get straightened out.
Sure.
And so if you would have postponed it another year, the economy could be worse.
I know.
And so if you leave it on cycle that's set, and there again, you do what's right for the majority. And I think the commissioners don't set the market value. Right. That's a buyer and a seller.
That's right. This is, I do not want to pay more money. No, I do not want to pay. Nobody does. But man, when I sold our house, it was really cool that we were able to sell it at a great.
Right.
I mean,
well,
almost
the markets
double
just
what we paid for it.
Were phenomenal. I mean, in Iredell County, we have an average of 42% across the board. Some of the surrounding counties are a lot higher than us around here.
Yeah.
But
if higher in taxes.
Higher in taxes because of the reval.
Right.
And so all of that's wonderful and great for people that want to sell their home. They want it high. But if you're not going to sell your home and you're happy and you're satisfied, you don't want to pay more taxes.
No.
And we get it.
Yeah.
And so I asked all but one person that I've talked to during the reval, and there may be others, to be fair.
Sure.
They call and they're upset. I get it. Would you sell your house for that? No. All but one.
Really?
And I said,
that's fair.
And I said, well, how are we too high? Well, I just don't want to pay the taxes on it. Right. And I get it. And I get it.
Yeah.
And so
that's a good question.
And so you ask them, well, what do you value your house at?
Sure.
And then there's an appeal process that you can go to. And so our people work hard. It's something that's mandated. A lot of people don't realize we do it. There's over 600 neighborhoods in the county.
600, okay.
There's over 600. It's 600
Sure. So
something, 14, 15, whatever it is.
Right, ballpark range.
But they do the revals by neighborhood, and that's just like a realtor would do a comp if you're selling in a neighborhood.
Right.
So there's, we as commissioners adopt the standards and things like that are pretty I'm going to say statewide or whatever. Yeah. But the reval set that tone, and then now, a lot of people call and say, are you going to lower our rate to help offset the impact of the reval?
Okay.
And so we're looking to do that. The manager recommended a 3 3/4 cent decrease from 53.75 to 50 cents.
Okay. So you're lowering taxes.
The recommendation so far is
Okay.
we're in the budget process right now,
Sure.
so we've not made a final decision.
Sure.
There's two sides of that. You have a lot of conservative people, I'm going to say business-minded people,
Yeah.
that say, you're already one of the lowest property tax counties in the state.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to go back to the voters, because typically if we spend a large amount of money, typically in the past over 35, 40 million, you go to the voters
Right.
for their approval.
Right.
You tell them the need, how you're going to pay for it, all those things.
Sure.
So if we're going to have to go back to the voters for more schools with the growth, if it continues,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people say, well, instead of lowering my rate now, just tell the voters you're going to put 4 cents
yeah.
basically in a capital fund for the school needs and that kind of stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, if people really look at the impact, let's say, for example, in the county, not a municipality, let's say per 100,000 evaluation per penny,
Okay.
it's going to save you, I think, around $20 or less dollars
Okay. A year.
or a year.
Okay.
So let's say if I lowered it 4 cents per 100,000, $80 per cent.
Oh,
So
okay.
if I lower
Got
it 4
it.
cents, 4 times 8.
Okay.
So, and the higher the value, but that's pretty close. It's not
Yeah,
it's
right,
not
right. Just-
specific,
right.
but it's a rough idea.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought it would be more significant than that, until they really look at the numbers.
Right.
And so, but there's a lot of people that really need some relief.
Right.
And so I think we'll be fine with a budget with a reduction in the tax rate. But at some point down the road, the commissioners, whomever they are, will have to raise that back up to meet the needs at that time. And so there's an argument both ways.
Yeah, I know. It's
and,
tough.
and I
It's
think
tough.
when citizens call and they take the time to listen and talk to us about the pros and the cons
Sure.
of doing that, it's surprising because there are more people out there that really understand. If you're going to come back to me, if you tell me you're going to save it, there's
Right.
an argument to be made to just save it and don't lower the rate.
Because you've got this $120 million price tag on a high
you've
school.
got that, but also you've got Mooresville. We have 3 systems we help fund: Mitchell
Right.
College, Mooresville Graded,
Right.
and Iredell Statesville. So
for education.
Right. And so then we have 26 county departments.
26 county departments.
26
Not realize that.
26 county departments. The manager manages over 1,100 employees.
1,100 employees.
Yep. And so, the school
Wow.
system's larger than that. They have,
Yeah.
I'm going to say, almost 3,000 employees. But I'm
Yeah.
going to say, as far as Iredell Statesville.
Right, sure.
But I'm going to say, working with my municipality colleagues from the school boards to the local elected officials, Steve Johnson and I are on the airport commission. Great asset
Right.
for our county and our
Right.
region. And we continue to get grant funding there to help improve the airport.
You do, don't you?
And we appreciate that.
Yes,
I
you're
wanted
welcome.
to say thank you. I wanted to publicly say thank you.
That's okay.
Your advocation for that and
Yeah.
our representatives' advocation.
Yeah.
They advocate for Iredell County. A lot of people don't realize how much tax dollars that you guys help bring home.
Yeah.
Because it's returning our state and federal revenues home. Our federal legislators have helped with some
Right.
fire department fundings and other things,
It's a big
airport,
deal.
et cetera.
Yeah. It's a
And
big
so
deal.
we have a network. I call it a network to work on behalf of the citizens. I just wish the citizens had more time to understand what all we're doing.
Yeah.
And
it's
there's
difficult.
a lot of facets that they don't understand. So I tell people all the time when they fuss at me about a vote that we've made or whatever, I say, consider this. Before you judge my actions, ask me my options. But there's 5 conservative county commissioners there that have a diverse background, an administrative staff, and we're going to make the best decision possible of the choices.
Yeah.
So if we were having a lot of split votes, 3-2, you could be concerned about maybe there's some other options.
Right.
But when you have some boards that, believe me, we argue and have great
I know
lively
you argue and
discussions.
have
And so, but
That's when I just kinda back out
that
of the
makes us
room.
better.
Yeah, it
that
does.
makes us better.
It
When
does.
citizens call, we had a rezoning recently, just to mention a thing about the balanced
Yeah,
growth.
absolutely. Go right ahead.
A lot of people don't want change. Change is coming. There's a lot of things that's allowed by right now as far as zoning. If it's residential, it could be worse and more impactful to citizens than a
Right.
commercial development.
Yeah. So I had this conversation in Cornelius yesterday, and one of the guys said the only person who likes change is a 2-year-old when they have a bad diaper.
Right.
That's like,
right.
okay,
That's right.
yeah, that makes sense.
Well, when you live, when a
Or
lot of
not
people,
2-year-old, yeah.
when they move from other states to Iredell County, and they say, well, I left those things and I come here and all that. I said, well, I said, please don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah.
But you didn't call me 10 years ahead and warn me all of you coming. So you can plan for the growth and the infrastructure and, all the different things because,
it's tough.
As you have growth and the residential impact is for us, we have to build schools.
Right.
You guys have to deal with the infrastructure and all that. So there's a lot of intricate details.
Yeah. And so I'm going to say, and I think what you're so adequately explaining is this. We have issues that you guys are trying to solve.
Right.
But man, what great issues they are.
They are.
I mean, if you look at some of those eastern North Carolina counties that are losing population, they have cities that are falling down. Their hospitals are closing. They have no primary care physicians, or they have one doctor in town. They can't attract and recruit businesses, and they have a double tax rate that Iredell County has. So I understand that the reval is frustrating, and I understand that taxes are no fun and all that other stuff, but I'm so grateful that we have conservative county commissioners.
We have growing pains. I mean, it's like a business. It's a big business.
Yeah, and I'm sure Scotland County would trade with us in a heartbeat.
And one other
thing,
you talk about the pros and cons of the tax rate. If we lower our rate too much, then also you could have an influx of people moving here, because we have thousands of people that live here because of the tax rate and drive out of county to work.
Right, that's right.
And we,
Well, I think someone is excited to ask us a question. Hopefully it's an easy softball one. I'm just kidding, but we do have a caller on the line. Welcome to the show. We were just saying you're on with Senator Vickie Sawyer and with Commissioner Gene Haupt.
Hey, Vickie.
Hey.
Hey, Gene.
Hey, how you doing?
In the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, I delivered a lot of lumber to the residential in Iredell County. A lot of houses were being built in those days before 2008 when the banks fell out. So I understand the urban development, and I understand how that works, and you guys are shedding a light on that, and it really, that's it's what it takes to get things done. And you made a real good point, Gene, when you were talking about if somebody doesn't agree with one thing, they want to throw the whole thing away. And that's what's going on in our federal government.
Right.
Unfortunately, we got to have federal government. I wish we could do away with that in some ways. I was for fair tax, but that's probably never going to happen because that would eliminate the IRS. But local is where it starts, and I think us individual states need to get together more like what you guys are doing, and I just want to thank you for trying to step up and trying to get things turned around in the right direction for this country, not just here in Iredell County, but it starts somewhere small, and then we can help everybody out in the whole United States of America.
I agree.
You're right. There's a lot of people that would
Happy Mother's Day, Vickie.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for the call. And thank you for listening to the show. And this is probably, I think that is such a great call and why I love and continue to do this show, because we get to dive into complex situations, things that affect our pocketbook at a local level, and be able to discuss our thought processes and why we go through it. Because I enjoy being a senator, and you enjoy being a county commissioner. You're going to run for re-election. I'm going to run for re-election. And so we want you to understand that these decisions that we made are much more difficult than just saying yes or no, right? I mean, there's so much that go into it. And when you talk about 26 county departments, that's a lot of people. You guys are one of the largest employers in all of Iredell County, and you continue to work on this. So we are going to talk about something else that's kind of interesting. It's got a lot of fun stuff going. You ready?
Yep.
Yeah, it's something I have a passion for. The Iredell County Fairgrounds.
Okay.
It is something that we were able to secure funding for in Iredell County as a state budget a couple of years ago. We got $5 million. I'm requesting for more funding. I don't know that we're going to get it from the state. But for me, I just have a heart for Iredell County Fairgrounds because, one, it is the identity of Troutman.
Right.
And I think it is just, Troutman is such an awesome community. I love that there's a state park there. And if you could redevelop those fairgrounds into being the crown jewel of Iredell County, and you can connect Iredell from the north to the south end, right? Because it's centrally located. It is beautiful. It's a great area. It's got a great history. It used to be a prison.
Yeah.
It used to
the
be
Historical
which
Society's
was,
done programs on that, and people don't realize that, but
Yeah.
it's interesting.
if you go to the Iredell County Fairgrounds and you walk into their to some of the buildings now, you can still see like where the chains were connected
Yeah.
then into the concrete. Look down at the concrete and you can still see where the
Right.
chains were connected. It is just fascinating history in that community. But
Sure.
it's seen better days.
Yeah.
Right? It is. We had a building.
It's
you guys had a
aged. It's
yes.
seasoned.
It's very seasoned. It is very seasoned. And so you had a building that fell down a couple years back, and you guys are figuring out what we're going to do with this fairgrounds. And there's a lot of hot debate about where it goes and is it going to stay there and all that stuff. So talk to me about what your thoughts are. I know you can't commit the board or talk about other people on the board,
Right.
but what are your thoughts about the fairgrounds?
Well, my goal and vision, we started years ago with a vision to start saving money with you guys, start trying to look at revenue streams. There was a committee established that you serve on
Yep.
with Representative McNeely, and I think is Gray on that too?
I'm not sure, but I have.
Well, he communicates with you guys.
Yes, he
but
does.
The Historical Society, those gentlemen have done a lot of work over the years to gather historical agriculture equipment, and we've got it stored, and they have it stored. And I think right now, some of the plans were they would love eventually to have a standalone museum, and I think we should have that at some point. And I think we're going to try to, in the original design I saw Friday,
Okay.
they're still in phases. They're still looking at designs, looking at options, prices. And I appreciate the presentation we got Friday from the committee because we were able to put it to bed a lot of rumors.
Yeah, good.
Nothing is ruled out right now.
Sure.
We all hear from the citizens that are active throughout
Yeah.
the county. They had some public meetings. So everyone's not going to like the whole design.
Sure.
So I hope there's some give and take.
Sure.
I think there's some plans for farmers markets is one of the things I would love to
That's
see.
my vote.
Well, I think
That's my vote.
Representative McNeely in the original design talked about there's some design around arena to have some indoor stuff around the outside of it,
Yeah.
to where people could leave stuff there and secure it. But I think our Historical Society and farmers would love to see an outside farmers market.
Let's bring it back out.
Okay.
Let's bring it back out.
Okay.
So the state fair, the county fairgrounds, when you hear fairgrounds, and if you're not from North Carolina and you just moved in, the fair historically is a big deal.
Yeah.
But when we talk about the fairgrounds, we're not talking about sinking money into a one time of year
right.
thing. You guys as commissioners and on this committee are looking at how do you redevelop the site of the fairgrounds to be a year-round
Right.
event venue that gives value to the citizens,
Right.
brings in sales tax dollars, is an economic incubator and not an economic
I call it
drain.
an investment.
An investment. And so we've seen you guys have been and the working group has been very good about going to other communities that have had and redeveloped their fairgrounds and have lost it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
And
they
our
just
manager
sink it.
mentioned in their presentation Friday for us, some of the people that's done what we're wanting to do, we're going to those people and finding out what worked and didn't work.
Right.
Because we want to have a facility that is usable year round.
Right.
For lots of different things.
Concerts
Sporting
or
events,
for
concerts,
I mean,
agriculture.
Yeah, exactly.
Cattle sales,
Right.
horse shows, whatever.
Right.
And it'll bring in a revenue stream. It'll
Sure.
fill up hotels,
Right.
people's restaurants.
Right.
It'll give our citizens, in our balanced growth, we
Yeah.
talk about quality of life.
Yeah.
If
And
you-
it brings in the best thing in Iredell County, other people's money.
Other people's money.
You want other people's
Yeah.
money because you don't have to take it
Well,
from
that's
us.
why we talk about a lot when we're doing these investments in things. We're investing in Jennings Park, other recreational
Mm-hmm.
things. In Iredell County, we're blessed with 2 interstates.
Mm-hmm.
And people hear me advocate that sales taxes are the fairest taxes because
Mm-hmm.
over 50% of that's paid by people traveling up and down the interstate, not Iredell County citizens.
Right.
And we've been blessed even through the down economic times to where we haven't taken a dip typically in the sales taxes.
Yeah.
On knock on wood.
Knock on. Yeah, I know.
And so
Yeah.
we're able to use those revenues for, things, whether it's schools or capital or
Yeah.
other things for the
Yeah.
county. So we're being really good stewards of tax
Yeah.
dollars, and we're looking at all kinds of options. And I know we sometimes get frustrated because we can't please all the people.
Right.
And everyone has different priorities and issues, but I wanted to say thank you to the Historical Society staff, you guys on the committee, the people that's taken the time to, over the years, to invest in gathering equipment And
it's going to be rocking. I don't know what you guys are going to do, but I am so excited about the fairgrounds because you are intentionally trying to make it an income-producing property for the county and let's bring in, whatever it happens, but let's bring in concerts. Like for me, the reason why I talk about really wanting a farmer's market and advocating for that, again, this is y'all's decision, not mine, is that we have some amazing communities in the north end of Iredell County that produce awesome food, and not just Iredell County, in Rowan County, and all these places. And we have folks who, quite frankly, have a lot of money in the south end who want that farm to table experience.
That don't farm.
So
this
would be
fresh vegetables and things.
Absolutely. So this would be a really good connector. We also have a need for a commissary kitchen. So these farmers in North Iredell or somewhere else, they want to say pickle and sell a food to market. Well, you have to have a safe certified kitchen in order to do that. So maybe this is an area where they can rent out that, and then they can legally resell their product. This is about creating an economic engine for Iredell County, and it also identifies and reinvigorates the town of Troutman.
Well, it's an economic engine. It's a quality of life.
Yep.
It's a diversity in your, in your all the things you provide in your communities and in your county.
Right.
If you've got a diverse county, and you've got quality of life, you've got low taxes, you've got a booming economy, you attract the right people that want to invest here. If people have better jobs, they have disposable income, and that's what drives your restaurants and other things coming here.
That's right.
And so Statesville's starting to grow.
Yeah, they're doing great.
And so they're doing great. So our Troutman's growing. Mooresville is growing.
I'm gonna get you off track here because we only have a few more minutes left. Talking about growth, some pain growth that we both have experienced is short-term rentals.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, this is what a thorny, troublesome issue that you, my friend, have helped me. We have really buckled down and worked on this, and it's been something that is at issue. So let's define the issue first, okay? The issue is that we have folks who are buying homes and corporate home ownership as a investment tool on Lake Norman.
Right.
They are renting those out through VRBO or Airbnb or have a third-party rental company. And so they have a home that's on the lake that maybe only is the certificate of occupancy is only for 2 bedrooms, but they're advertising it for 20 people to come in and hang out. Now, these homes are not being advertised. They're being advertised for 20 people. And I was looking some of them are being rented for $1,000 a night.
Or more.
And so how do you balance that with, the homeowner who just bought the retirement home and wants a peaceful life? And it's really hard. And so at the state level, I've tried to get some legislation passed, which has gotten huge resistance. I'm not going to be able to get it done, which limited occupancy on these VRBOs. And then that's where you've kind of stepped up and helped out, answering the call, because pushing through these barriers about how do we set regulations around these short-term rentals.
Well, if we've tried to work with my colleagues on our board and our staff and lawyer and the sheriff's office, working with the citizens that are in these areas, and we've got to figure out, we're working on some text amendments or ordinances that will hopefully bring some awareness, be able to have some penalties for abuse, and maybe set some standards that we can as far as occupancy and uses. And we have some concerns also about some of the things that's taking place on the lake.
Sure.
So the Marine Commission is hopefully working on that.
Good.
And so we've just got to try to figure out a balance. We want businesses to be businesses.
Sure.
But we would love to be able to register those businesses or tax them as businesses.
Oh, that's my other thing I want to do. It's tough, right?
It's tough.
So we're talking about occupancy tax. Remember, we love other people's money.
Right.
And occupancy tax is other people's money. So when you come into Statesville and you have a hotel for the night, you're paying up to 6 cents or 6% of occupancy tax, and that money goes into the travel and tourism. We had Cindy Sutton on the board, that's the executive director.
Both towns are helping. Mooresville and Statesville right now are helping pay for the
Iredell
civic
County
centers.
doesn't have a occupancy tax because nobody ever thought that you would have VRBOs or Airbnbs in the county. But now we've got, it could be possibly up to $3 million in revenue we're missing out on by not having a tourism board. And this is another way we could possibly help fund with
one of the biggest things is try to be fair to the citizens that are neighbors to these situations, to where the numbers of people, the hours of parties.
It's horrible.
In some cases, our septic systems are being strained.
Yeah.
And, you hope to satisfy everyone without offending the satisfied.
Right.
But I'm saying it's really challenging for our citizens that live there.
Sure.
And want to live in peace. And want to enjoy their neighborhoods and the lake and all that. So if we can get our Airbnbs and these companies to work with us and manage better and get some policies and ordinances in place to regulate some of this.
Because it's the wild west
going to be
right
difficult.
now.
It's a wild west. Very frustrating, passionate. So our citizens are, some talk to me and they're angry or emotional. They want to live and they don't want their neighbor not to enjoy things, but your enjoyment doesn't need to be offensive to me.
Right.
And so there's got to be some give and take.
The sheriff has done a great job and has a task force designed around this, but there are instances where a home will have 100 people at a party home at night. And then let's talk about the safety issue. They're renting boats. When the North Carolina Wildlife Commission, when I started looking into this a couple years back to see what we could do, the fatalities on Lake Norman are almost always from rental boats.
And they don't have classes.
And there's no
a lot
regulation,
of them never had
none of that. And there's pushback. I've tried to work with that stuff too, and there's pushback on that because people like the wild west in some points. The
sheriff's office has done a great job to try, dealing with it with the means they have.
Right.
But we've got to figure out a way to work with the Airbnbs and short-term rental people to hopefully get them to police themselves with some regulations from our perspective, because I think they have the potential to make revenue without being so devastating to the neighborhoods.
Sure. Well, yeah. And as a property owner, when you have 100 people come to your house for a party, they're not going to be very good stewards of your property, right?
Especially when you start mixing alcohol and
it's a dangerous thing. So I want to say thank you, Gene, or Commissioner Halp, for helping me with this on a local issue, because I know it's something that other county commissioners had looked at in the past, and we just kept on getting into this legal limbo, which what I always will say is when you have one lawyer in the room, know every answer to every question.
Right.
And as soon as you get two in the room, you know nothing at all.
Right.
And that's where we've had two lawyers in a room, one from the state and one from, and it's just all these what ifs.
Right.
And so sometimes your elected representatives like you and I have to go, guys, we just got to do something. We've got to fix this.
We've got to help with the solution get better.
Yeah.
There's not a quick fix, but I think we're trying. And but I wanted to say thank you for the invite today. Even though I'm sorry I wasn't the celebrity you needed.
Are.
I wasn't an A-list celebrity, but I wanted to say Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
And tell all the mothers out there, my wife and all the mothers, Happy Mother's Day.
That is absolutely true. And you will be enjoying the Mother's Day weekend. I will not be going to the abortion rally on a Mother's Day weekend that Governor Cooper is having for an oddest time in the world to have that rally. I'm hearing that he's going in different areas of the state and it's not being well received. So hopefully we can get this veto overridden and go about the business of the state. So I want to say thank you, Gino, for being on here.
My favorite saying is Iredale Strong.
Iredale Strong. Very good.
Together we're strong.
Together we're strong. So I appreciate that. Guys, thank you for listening. Thanks for the calls. And we will see you next week.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Happy Mother's Day.